I saw this post shared widely around Catholic media, and it says, "A step back in time, America's Catholic Church sees an immense shift towards the old ways." Now, I thought this was, fascinating in the sense that, we've spent 50 years shoving everything at people, that anything that they wanted in the church, any type of music, and all of a sudden people, young people especially, are looking for something that is beyond what this world has to offer. I mean, popular music is what it is, and the return to something sacred, can you see people, the veil, communion on the tongue, the traditions of our church. Now, I want to be clear, our faith isn't in a rite or a dress or a piece of art or something like these. All of these things point us towards what is truly great, who our Lord Jesus Christ is. And sometimes these traditional forms of prayer, people can get attached to them and make a god of those things themselves. But if they're used in the proper sense, as the church used them for centuries and centuries, Gregorian chant was used for centuries and centuries and centuries. Beauty leads to contemplation. Beauty leads you into contemplation. A beautiful church, is something to visit. It's a place to contemplate. I mean, I always found it incredible when you walk into an Orthodox church. I mean, it's like a rich chocolate cake with so much iconography, and all of the art, different scenes in the gospel. All of this art is pointing us to Christ. If you look at the old Celtic high crosses, different scenes in the gospel that would have been used to catechize people. People would have looked at this high cross and they would have understood the truths and the tenets of the faith. But since Vatican II, we've gone down this minimalistic, horrible, bunker style church art. And, sometimes you walk into a church and you wonder, what have you walked into? There's nothing of the sacred there. And those that are proposing this art to us are saying, you don't be attached to these things, your faith is not in it. Like, it's strange the way that churches come full circle. And the sad reality is, the Pope is proposing this conversation in the Spirit, this synod of synodality, this listening process. But he started this off by issuing a document that he didn't even consult the person who issued the document. He didn't even take half an hour to go down to Pope Benedict Emeritus at the time and say, look, we're issuing this document. I just wanted to make you aware. No. It was like a dictatorial step by the Pope. And the Pope has every right to do this. Don't get me wrong. He has the right to do this. But when on the one hand he's saying listening, dialogue, conversation in the Spirit, and on the other hand you're issuing a document that is going to cause grief, confusion, especially to a lot of families that have grown up with a rite that they go to Mass every Sunday with, and they like, and it has nourished them, and they're fully catechized. They understand the language. They understand the chant. They're not these pre-1950s uneducated, illiterate Catholics. They're not understanding what is happening in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. They're highly catechized today. And this is what the church is missing. I'll just read you through this AP, some of what they've said here. It was the music that changed first. Or maybe that's just when many people of the pale brick Catholic Church in the quiet Wisconsin neighborhood finally began to realize what was happening. The choir director, a fixture at St. Maria Goretti for nearly 40 years, was suddenly gone. Contemporary hymns were replaced by music rooted in medieval Europe. So much was changing. Sermons were focusing on sin and confession. Oh my God, is sin returning now? I thought that was gone 50 years ago, and we never know who goes to confession today in the parish. Priests are rarely seen without cassocks. Oh gosh, cassocks. Altar girls for a time were banned. At the parish elementary school, students began hearing about abortion and hell. Wow! Is hell back as well? That's interesting. I thought we got rid of hell. Abortion, should we just give communion to politicians who promote abortion? You know, we say, yeah, it's on our, we don't believe in abortion, and we speak out against it. But if you're Catholic and you're voting for it and you're pushing it, like, I don't know, Pelosi or Biden or any of these, you know, it's fine. You can have your public opinion and your private faith. Is this the way we are in the church? It was like a step back in time, said one former parishioner, still so dazed by the tumultuous changes that began in 2021 with the new pastor, and he only spoke on condition of anonymity. It's not just St. Maria Goretti. Across the US, the Catholic Church is undergoing an immense shift. Generations of Catholics who embraced the modernising tide sparked in the 1960s by Vatican II are increasingly giving way to religious conservatives who believe the Church has been twisted by change, with promise of eternal salvation replaced by guitar masses, parish food pantries, and casual indifference to church doctrine. The shift moulded by plummeting church attendance. That's true. Look around Ireland. Look around Ireland. Increasingly traditional priests and growing numbers of young people searching for more orthodoxy has reshaped parishes across the country, leaving them sometimes at odds with Pope Francis and much of the Catholic world. The changes were not happening everywhere. There are still plenty of liberal parishes, plenty that see themselves as middle of the road. Despite their growing influence, conservative Catholics remain a minority. Yet the changes brought are impossible to miss. Now, this is Associated Press that's publishing this. The progressive priests that dominated the church, like McCarrick. You know, I honestly do think McCarrick had a massive influence on the US. Church in the years after Vatican are now in their 70s and 80s. Many are retired, some are dead. Young priests, surveys show, are far more conservative. And why wouldn't you be? Why become a priest? You become a priest to conserve the apostolic faith of the church and to give it to the next generation. What is the point of your vocation? Imagine a heart surgeon that didn't teach his students about proper heart surgery so all their patients survived. I mean, why become a liberal priest that doesn't know the faith, love the faith, and is not capable of transmitting the faith? Why bother? Just go off and do something else with your life. They say they're trying to restore what us old guys ruined, said Father John Florliti, a retired Two Cities priest who fought for civil rights and reforms of the Catholic Church, Catholic school sex education. Doug Cosell, an outspoken 72-year-old priest of the Blessed Trinity Church in Cleveland, was blunter. They're just waiting for us to die. In fact, that's what many younger priests are being told. Look, the generation that's strangling, they'll be gone soon. And it'll be your turn. Keep your head down. I've seen it. I've heard it. You know, what is the point of a priest who's not a man of Christ? To give people Christ. But what we've seen over the last decades is a systematic process of closure of churches. We look at Netherlands, Belgium, Netherlands especially. Thousands of churches closed in Netherlands and Belgium. France, Germany. You know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tax-paying, church-going, used to be Catholics, have handed back their Catholic affiliation. What do we speak of? We're just as woke as the world sometimes. Like on paper we say we're not, but in reality, do we actually believe what we preach? St. Maria Goretti, once steeped in the ethos of Vatican II, many parishioners saw the changes as a requiem. I don't want my daughter to be Catholic, says Christine Hammond, whose family left the parish while the new outlook spilled into the church's school and the daughter's classroom. Not if this is the Roman Catholic Church that is becoming. But this is not a simple story, because there are many who welcome the new old church. And it is a new. I mean, the traditional movement is a new movement in the church. Those that go to the traditional Latin Mass today are highly catechized. They understand the rite. They understand the Mass. They understand the faith. It's not, like it was pre-Vatican II, where people saying, oh, there's no active participation in the Mass. Today, those that attend the traditional Latin Mass, in my experience, observing them, they're all heavily catechized. Parents are catechizing their kids. There is a community there. But look, they attend confessionally regularly and adhere strictly to church teachings. Many yearn for masses that echo for medieval traditions, more Latin, more incense, more Gregorian chants. And again, the Latin, the incense, the Gregorian chants, all of this leads to contemplation. All of it helps you lead to Mass, to Christ, to prayer. We want the ethereal experience that is different to everything else in our lives. And why wouldn't we? God, we've everything that this world has to offer. We need a heavenly experience of the liturgy. Anyway, I do recommend that people read the article, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating experience. But I suppose what I'm saying to the church is, they are a minority, as people say. They keep saying these are minorities, the traditional Catholics. But why not have a voice in the synodal process? Why are they excluded? Why is their experience of the faith excluded? Or have we said, no, the Spirit can't work in your communities? No, you're pre-1950s, so you're not. The Spirit is absent from your communities. Your experience of Christ, your union with God, is not what we're proposing for the church. Yesterday there was a priest, his cause for canonization was opened initially, and I think people know the priest I'm talking about. He wrote messages in a book talking about a false Christ and a false church. What is happening in the church today? What Christ is being proposed to the church today? What process is being proposed to the church today? Look around the church. When the leaders, when those that have been given the task of being shepherds are asleep at the wheel, have been asleep for decades. And that's why you had people like McCarrick rising to the top. Not any old bishop, not any old cardinal rising to the top. How did he get there? He didn't get there on his own. And he had no faith. He had no capacity to actually lead souls to Christ. He was a fraud. And people are saying, well, if these frauds have been ruling the church for so long, maybe it's time that this is shaken up. And that's why people are looking for something that will help them on their and so many people are looking for it. Like, I do want to stress that I encourage people to go to Holy Mass, whatever Holy Mass that they go to. Be it traditional Latin Mass, be it the new Mass. But go to Holy Mass to nourish yourself with the body of our Lord, with the Word. I don't like dividing the church. We should have unity. But we should also be able to have this conversation. We should also be able to have this conversation in peace in the church. But it seems like it's not a conversation you're even allowed to have in some parts. I always remember in Rome, we used to go into the Vatican in the morning so you could get Mass at many of the private chapels. You'd have priests from all around the world arriving early. It was the best time to get into the Vatican, to go to a private Mass where some or other priests that were saying Mass there in different languages before the thousands of tourists arrive. That's gone now from Rome. And we've seen 50 years of stripping away what is sacred to be left with what? To be left with what? We don't teach the faith. We don't preach the faith. And then bishops are left managing declining parishes. I mean, the core of the faith, I do want to stress, the core of everything that we're doing is union with God. So we shouldn't make an idol of the chant, the Mass, the beauty and the liturgy. All of these are pointing us to Christ. But they do help. They do help when they're done, when a mass is offered with humility, with love, to strengthen the church, not as division. I think people get the spirit I'm doing this video. The spirit is to strengthen the church, unity in the church, love for the Holy Father. But the church has one mission. It's one mission. Everything in the church has to point towards this one mission, which is to save souls, union with God. We're not a social club, an NGO, a charity. The church has one mission. It's even noted in canon law. And yet do we take that mission seriously? What we offer in the church, do we take it seriously to lead souls on a process of purification? So all I'm asking is for this conversation to happen. I mean, today, Jim Brown, his funeral will take place at 11. I'm going to it. And, Jim Brown built his own chapel. This was a layman, built his own chapel. And in his chapel, used to always say, here we talk to God. He would not allow people to talk in his chapel. He would not. He heavily promoted communion kneeling on the tongue. He bought a kneeler. And when people went up for communion in his chapel, they would receive it kneeling on the tongue. I hope today at his funeral, people will carry on his legacy of reverence for the Eucharist, of silence during a mass. I wish more priests would take the microphone in a church and say, sorry, here we talk to God. You spend all of your lives on phones and social media and talking to each other. Spend a couple of minutes talking to God. Maybe priests will get back to be ministers of our Lord Jesus Christ. They can give the the body of our Lord to the faithful. Maybe it'll take 5, 10, 15 minutes more. And it'll be a time when faithful will reflect on the sacrament they've received. If we don't make an effort that we actually do believe, where are we leading the church? Where are we leading? Where are we leading souls? That's why I say people go to Christ, encounter Christ. But we are human beings with senses. We have sight, smell, we touch, we see, and so in our places that are sacred, it should be an encounter of the sacred. That the Mass that is being offered is sacred. And we've taken time to prepare the Mass. It breaks my heart when I see a Mass. It usually happens in the Novus Ordo. When you see a Mass, you go into Mass and you see the chalice just thrown on the altar. And the corporal just laced above it. And the cruets there. And the missal there just play. It's just like you're having a casual breakfast. You're having a casual breakfast. So these sacred objects, they mean nothing. Because I haven't taken the time to actually prepare them. The altar stripped of its altar linen, altar cloth. I mean, there was Dominican nuns in Galway. There's a documentary on RT, and they're talking about this sacred cloth. I need to know the name of this. That would have been placed around an altar for sacred. For the holy sacrifice, the Mass. So that everything that was happening on the altar was pointing towards something incredibly precious to us. So these nuns had spent hours and hours and hours sewing this incredible cloth that would have been placed around an altar. You see it in Westminster Cathedral. Sadly, today in our Irish church, we have thrown out our altars that thousands of pounds were paid for by our ancestors and put in new ones and destroyed the sacred. And we think we're great. We think they're great. We've been doing this for 50 years. And now what's the next project that we have in the Irish Church? Consolidation of parishes, consolidation of dioceses, closing monasteries, closing convents, selling off church property. And there's nothing we can do because there is simply not the faithful there to support the church. Because we've abandoned what is sacred and we've proposed this new whatever, and it's not engaging a new generation. We don't take it seriously. As I said, I go back to that analogy with the heart surgeon. Heart surgeon would take seriously teaching his students. This is serious. What I'm doing is serious because lives are at stake, and you should take it seriously because lives are at stake. Same with the faith. This is serious and we take it seriously, and you should take it seriously. But I digress, and and as I said, it's a passionate topic. So I would ask the Irish Church, the church in general, do you want a synodal process where people are listening, or do you want to continue on with your echo chamber? Because that's what the synodal process is in Ireland, an echo chamber. Homeschooling people were not included in the synodal process. That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, wouldn't it be great if you had 10 families that homeschool their kids included in the synodal listening process, went out and actually invited them in? No. Traditional Catholics. Don't need. You're old school. You're not part of the new project. We're moving on. Just do what you're doing. And guys, where are we? It's like, I find it fascinating that the church is so focused on ecumenism. We'll bend over backwards to have a photo with the Church of Ireland bishop and this and that and the other and have the. But when it comes to actually embracing our own traditions, our own liturgy, our own prayer, we'll silence them. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. But again, as I said, I love the church. I go to any mass. I do not, I'm not here to create division, but I'm asking people to wake up. Catholics, wake up. What are you being sold? People are yearning, especially the younger generation, are yearning for a profound encounter with Christ. How do you do it? How do you progress along the spiritual life? People want to know. People want to know who God is. But you can't give what you don't have. And if you don't spend time in prayer, if you don't spend the time in contemplation, in Holy Mass, in Rosary, prayer. If we don't know how to pray, how can we know Christ? And how can we give what we don't have? And that's what we need to teach. And sometimes the 2,000-year-old method of sanctification that the saints practiced for centuries, like Padre Pio. Padre Pio didn't ever go to a new mass. Padre Pio spent his life saying a traditional Latin mass. It was good enough for him as a priest. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people came to him. And he transformed the thousands of people with his ministry, same as Kurt Ayers. If it was good enough for them, there might be something there that'll help the church without being divisive. I don't know. Pray for the church. God bless you. Take care.